The traditional rivals were hungry for competition points, and Newcastle couldn't have imagined a worse start. 3 minutes into the match, the Falcons were already down by 9, but Butch Hayes set about narrowing the early deficit. Marty McLean was ruthless for 3, and when he steamrolled his way through moments later, the Falcons were back. David Van Dyke weaved magic and Newcastle hit the lead. Illawarra coach Brendan Joyce thought he had the answers, and on the court the Hawks came through with the goods, again jumping to the front, Dean McDonald the destroyer. The home side huddle said it all at the main change, the visitors in front by 8. For a moment it looked as though worse things were to come. The Hawks again applied the pressure, while for the Falcons nothing would stick. That was until Butch Hayes hinted at a Falcons comeback. Against his former club, Hayes was the standout, but not even his 24-point haul could save Newcastle. Illawarra going home with an 89-78 victory, the Falcons crashing to their 4th straight NBL loss.
Pelting rain and gusts of wind greeted the 250 competitors. But the conditions didn't deter those who travelled from throughout the Hunter and the mid-north coast.
Unfortunately, it was windy, blowy and wet, but that happens when we have fires as well.
Fortunately, it wasn't long before the weather cleared and the teams made their way through the 7 events. Competitors work against the clock. Points are awarded for safety and professionalism. The yearly event is not just a chance for crews to display their skills,
but more importantly to socialise, mix with other brigades and pick up some points, have a look at each other's equipment, generally get together for a good day out.
The winners will compete at the State Championships at Wagga in September. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
What they're doing is flawed. We believe that these basic social safety net provisions in health, education, social security need to be preserved and enhanced and not undermined.
As reputations go, Newcastle isn't recognised as being the cleanest city in the state. The presence of heavy industry polluting opinions about the environmental health of the area. But according to experts, it's setting the standard for a number of environmentally friendly projects which were discussed at a Keeping Australia Beautiful conference today. Energy Australia has a long-term project aimed at reducing greenhouse emissions from coal-fired power stations. The company is piloting a program in the Hunter which encourages consumers to choose alternative methods of generating energy.
That's about giving people an opportunity to buy electrons or buy electricity that is generated from sources which aren't black coal, renewable energy resources, wind turbines, solar, hydro power stations, things like that.
Mr Franklin concedes that concerns about greenhouse effects are not going to disappear, but says that it's in the hand of customers to make the choice.
For consumers, it'll be the first time when they've actually got a choice to actually do something about their environment.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
This 100-hectare block, BHP land beside the Mayfield plant, is set aside for industrial development. In an attempt to lure companies to the site, Premier Carr has a special enticement.
It's a new approach by the government to slash red tape, and our objective is very clear, and that is to get jobs for the hunter.
2,000 jobs in fact, although that would be offset by job losses through new technology at BHP over the coming decade. Business groups and different levels of government have joined together to try and cut development approval time from, in some cases, years to a guaranteed 28 days.
In the past, everybody's had to wander around all over the place to a multiplicity of different government departments and agencies, and they just walk away and throw their hands up.
The plan is to streamline the approval process. If successful, the idea would be used across the state. Business people say it would be attractive to potential investors.
On its own, it's not going to solve the problem. There's a lot of hard work to be done. We've got to go and find the people who want to set up businesses here. But having a streamlined process for approvals will appeal to a lot of people.
Newcastle Council, which has been criticised as anti-development, has given it the OK. Councillors can veto development approval, but the state government does have the power to override them. Meanwhile, the Premier has guaranteed the 575 jobs at the Mount Thorley coal mine near Singleton by approving extensions to the mine.
Approval of the extension program at Mount Thorley ensures the mine will remain competitive in international markets by allowing for significant increases in production.
The extension adds 400 hectares to the existing mine, boosting production from 7 to 8 million tonnes per year. It gives the mine an additional 20 years of life. Also today, Premier Carr launched a new appeal for Newcastle's Christchurch Cathedral. It's hoped $2 million can be raised. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The beautiful bays and beaches of Port Stephens already attract tens of thousands of visitors, but only for about 6 weeks of every year. The tourism organisation of Port Stephens wants to turn it into a year-round influx, with each area targeted for a specific group of tourists.
We believe that Nelson Bay should be the retail centre for tourism in the area. We believe that Shoal Bay should become the upmarket accommodation area. We see Anna Bay as being very much the ecotourism centre and gateway for the area.
Tanilba Bay would become an ecotourism and heritage area, with Raymond Terrace the regional gateway, Karua the northern gateway. But the tourism organisation needs $300,000 a year to market the area. Business would pay for part of the scheme, but a $10 levy on residents would be needed to raise most of the funds.
Very hard, very hard. I think that always when you try and sell Australians any sort of thought of control or any sort of thought of levy, the immediate reaction is, hello, here they are, fences up again, hands in our pockets.
The tourism group says council must lead by example if others are to follow.
We believe we can start to attract support from federal and state government to fund it, and ultimately then for the private investors to come in with things like hotel developments and the vehicular ferry and so on.
A survey will be sent to every household to gauge support before Port Stephen Council votes on the issue next month. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The game at Peacock Oval was deferred after being washed out 2 weeks ago. Toronto may have wished it had been abandoned altogether after Souths crossed early. Toronto got to within 2 courtesy of a penalty before Paul Skovgaard sent Steve Dufficy over for the equaliser. But Souths refused to give in, walking away with a 48-20 win. Meanwhile, sporting success of a different kind at Breakers Stadium today, as soccer was introduced to some special Newcastle school students. It was a joint venture by the Newcastle Breakers and the Mariners, with coach John Cosmina finding his new team easier to coach than professionals.
It's a lot more fun, to be honest, and the good thing about these people here is that they listen to me. My players don't want to listen. They already know how to play their game, or so they think.
It's fun, and I like it, and it's very nice.
Oh, being goalie just then, it was heaps fun.
The emphasis was on fun rather than victory, with the smiles on the students' faces signifying a win for everybody involved. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Reports of the poaching incident outraged Malcolm Reilly at a Knights news conference. When asked if he was fed up, the Knights coach issued a blunt reply. It's been suggested the Bears have tried to lure the Knights representative forward Adam Muir with a $500,000 offer. That's a breach of the league contract. He's with the Knights until the end of next season, and he cannot enter into any discussion, negotiation, contact, agreement, arrangement, understanding or option with another club. The ARL is investigating. Meantime, the Knights are continuing to negotiate contracts with Paul Harrigan, Mark Glanville and Robbie O'Davis for next year and beyond. It's hoped new agreements will be finalised within the next fortnight. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Barrington Tops, 60 kilometres west of Gloucester, was today a winter wonderland. 10 centimetres of overnight snow has turned the state forest into a picturesque playground. 6-year-old Clinton and 11-year-old Lindsay couldn't think of a better way to start their school holidays. Building snowmen and getting into snowball fights, a great way for kids to pass the day. But don't be fooled, this sort of fun is not exclusively for the children.
We were hoping for snow. And we've got it. It's wonderful.
What do you think of all the snow?
Oh, it's great.
Due to its close location to Newcastle and the Central Coast, thousands of people visit Barrington Tops in winter.
Barrington Tops is 1,500 metres above sea level, and heavy snow can occur here between April and October, but it has been known to snow here in summer as well.
Tonight, the State Forest's Gloucester to Scone Road remains closed to two-wheel drive vehicles, but nobody seems to mind. Simone Thurtell, NBN News.
Some of the ladies decamped upon arrival for their own safety, taking in a brief spell in the boot, while their masters cruised around Lake Macquarie. The occasion for the unusual gathering, a New South Wales Rolls-Royce Owners Club outing. Amongst the rank and file, the real Rolls-Royce of rollers, the royal chariot that ferried the Queen to her engagements on her 1968 visit to Australia. And after turning a few locals green with envy, the rollers quietly slunk back out of town in single file. A modest departure for a not-so-modest bunch of car owners. These are the faces that terrorised staff at the Adamstown State Bank last month when two men threatened staff with a semi-automatic shotgun. In a frightening attack, the men pointed the firearm at a bank teller's head, demanding the bank's safe be opened. The two men shown in these pictures, taken from a surveillance camera, fled with $100,000. They are wanted for other similar robberies around the region. The bandits are professionals, according to the Major Crime Squad, executing each job quickly and using at least 2 getaway cars. Identikit images have now been released in the hope that someone will come forward with information. The first man is described as tall, of medium build, between 30 and 40 years old, with brown hair. The second is about 40 years old, of average height and build, with dark hair and a dark complexion. Laura Saperstein, NBN News. On a quiet country road at Fullerton Cove, there aren't too many people trying to get into the Sidfog bus terminal, but these picketers are nevertheless determined to keep them out. The 20 bus drivers who went on strike yesterday morning say for years they've been paid less than their reward entitlements.
In some cases we've had underpayments of up to $200 in a weekend. Now if you projected that out over the year, that's $10,000 that they've given to an employer, and I don't know many workers that can afford to give away $10,000 a year.
The workers, who have now spent a day and a half camped on the side of the road in cold, windy conditions, say they won't be budging until an agreement is reached.
Some of us are sleeping in our back seat of the car, some are sleeping in front seats of the car, some are sleeping in the tents. You know, it's just wherever we put our head down. But we just stayed here all night and we're here till it's all resolved.
While Sidfog's management would not comment today, union delegates say some minor progress has been made in negotiations, but the major hurdle of back pay is yet to be overcome. In the meantime, the drivers say no buses will be leaving the depot. That means the company's regular passenger runs to Dubbo and Canberra will be cancelled until further notice.
After a 20-point drubbing by the Falcons earlier this year, the Wildcats set about putting the record straight at the Entertainment Centre last night. He and veteran Scott Fisher started in style, and by quarter time the visitors were in front by 6. Butch Hayes was right on the mark in the second, but his was one of few early highlights, the ball refusing to stick. Coach Tom Wiseman then called for intensity. The Falcons were quick to deliver. 46-39 at half-time, and Newcastle started to charge. Second time lucky for the skipper. His team followed in the same direction. A remarkable last quarter saw the Falcons level. 34 points in the term had the Feathers working overtime as Newcastle overhauled the visitors to break their 4-match winning drought at the buzzer, a thrilling 96-91 victory. Two of the competition heavyweights at Peacock Field this afternoon. West second on the ladder, Toronto third, and it was the Scorpions who led early before a penalty to the Rosella's Scott Bradley brought the score to 8 points to 4. A barging run from Peter Chapman left Toronto flattened and 6 points worse off. and then it was on. 10 minutes in the bin and both sides were given a chance to cool off before Wests again turned on the heat, Peter Jenner joining the try scorers. The final score 36 points to 8. In the NBN Soccer League, wins to Highfields, Broadmeadow and Hamilton, and a 1-1 draw between West Wallsend and Western. The Bears did most of the attacking early on, but desperate defence restricted scoring. Against the run of play, the Bluebells were first to find the net. The goal lifted the home side. They nearly scored again before the Bears equalised for a 1-1 draw. A draw also overnight for the Adamstown Rosebuds, and more than 100 points in this afternoon's rugby union match of the round, but the Wildfires finished on the wrong side of the equation, down 86-27 by Eastwood.
Ten-year-old German Shepherd Fagin can be a trained killer or a friendly family pooch. Luckily for the residents of Newcastle, he was in the latter mood when he took a 30-hour leave of absence from his trainer on Sunday night. Fagin disappeared in the cover of darkness from his trainer's yard and wasn't seen again until the following evening at Garden City Shopping Centre, a few kilometres away. After deciding he wasn't a genuine customer, security guard Lawrence Elliott made the arrest this morning.
Actually grabbed a bone from the butcher's, gave that to the dog to make him happy, and able to put a collar on him and sort of hold him on the seat until the handler arrived.
It's not known exactly how long the dog had been on the loose, but shopping centre management says it was seen prowling around the centre late last night and had growled at a cleaner early this morning.
Newcastle police say while Fagin can be extremely dangerous to criminals, he presented little danger to the public.
Once the handler's there and the dog's at work, then they become the highly skilled and highly trained animals that they are. Once they're not at work, they basically revert back to the normal household pet, and they're quite friendly.
Dog and master were reunited this morning. They'll now be sniffing out that weak link in the backyard fence. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
It's a country race day like no other. Thousands packed into a party by a racecourse. They come to eat, drink and be merry.
So I heard last year this was the most fabulous race we did come to. And it is. You meet all these lovely people from all around Australia.
Oh, the carnival atmosphere, mate, is great. People here, they're just fantastic.
And apparently there's also a big race, the Dr. Jerd's Jungle Juice Cup. A great way to finish the day if you're on the winner. Yellow Monday paying 40 to 1. The trifecta more than $2,000.
The Knights' form against Canterbury on Sunday was down, the team making fundamental mistakes. And while Malcolm really had threatened sackings, he stuck with the side.
There's no one in the second team that's sort of yelling out, you know, pick me. I'm playing particularly well.
Paul Harrigan comes back in after some niggling injuries. Muir and Andrew Johns have been selected, but they will still need checkups later this week. Jamie Ainscough has made the run-on side, although he was pencilled in for the bench. Ainsco's representative form has been good, but his club games haven't been great.
I'm pretty sure they'll not let himself down. He wants to impress.
The last time the Knights played Canberra, they took a hiding in freezing conditions at Bruce Stadium. They'll be hoping for a warmer reception at Marathon on Friday night. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
She may be beautiful, but make sure she also has brains. That's the message genetics researcher Gillian Turner is sending out to men following new research which reveals women may be solely responsible for their son's intelligence. Both parents carry the gene for intelligence in their X chromosome, but while girls receive an X chromosome from each parent, boys only receive the X from their mother, receiving a Y chromosome from their father.
Males are not going to pass their intelligence to their sons. Their sons' intelligence will only come from their wives, and perhaps they need to remember that when they're deciding on who they're going to have as the mother of their children.
Gillian says the research has found a basis for the more frequent occurrence of some learning difficulties in males rather than females. But while she would encourage men to think a little harder before choosing their prospective partner, she's aware the heart usually rules the head.
Mating is more chemical than anything, really. You just get attracted to somebody, don't you? So it's very hard to then impose thinking about, is this the right person to be the mother of my children?
The money was raised since March by the army of 30,000 Avon ladies going door to door selling pink ribbon lapel pins. Today the proceeds were handed over in Sydney. There are two recipients. The Encore Breast Cancer Support Network, currently based in Melbourne, will now be able to expand Australia-wide.
It's not the end of the line. There is life after breast cancer and we can help you live it.
The other recipient is the Newcastle-based Australian-New Zealand Breast Cancer Trials Group, which is studying the breast cancer gene with some success.
We know that we can cure many, many more women because drugs and hormone treatments have been tested, and we also know that early detection does save lives.
And you can still help. The Avon Pink Ribbon fundraising drive will continue for the remainder of the year.
When you think that today there will be another 20 women in Australia diagnosed with breast cancer, and another 7 or 8 women in Australia will die from breast cancer today, it is a goal that is very, very easy to support.
It was at 10:40 last night on Mountview Road, Cessnock, that two men came to the door of a house saying they'd run out of petrol and asking to use the phone. A 57-year-old woman came to the door but didn't let the men in.
She was obviously fairly suspicious, and she's gone in and done the right thing and attempted to ring the police, but before she's been able to do that, the offenders have kicked in the front door, and two men, both covered with balaclavas and armed with a pistol, have come in and assaulted her.
By the time the attackers broke into the house, the woman had already dialed police, but the robbers knocked the phone from her hand, threatening to shoot her if she didn't cooperate. She tried to fight them off, but was overpowered.
Well, she was placed in a headlock, and at one stage she was pushed to the ground, and one of the offenders kicked her a number of times.
The woman says the attack has left her terrified for her future safety. Her ordeal wasn't the only cruel attack overnight. A couple in their mid-80s was terrorised in their Mayfield home. The pair was asleep at around midnight when two men in balaclavas broke into their Thomas Street home. They demanded money and threatened the man, an invalid with dementia, with his own walking stick. They escaped with just $25 and a handbag which was later found stuffed down a toilet in a nearby park. Laura Saperstein, NBN News. To a Prime Minister in full election campaign fervour, $1,600 may seem like a pittance, but to some councillors at Cessnock, it's big bickies. At a meeting last night, a furore broke out over whose pocket should be drained, the miners who invited Mr Keating or council who made the civic arrangements. But the intrigue goes deeper than a mere accounting disagreement. Some say the former PM snubbed the Mayor, not extending an official invitation to him. Others argue more important issues can be found to lose sleep over.
I personally don't feel shattered every time I don't get an invite to some sporting organisation that opens in my ward.
The Mayor says while he's not sure council should pay, he's not the one with sour grapes.
I didn't participate in the debate in council last night at all, except and suggest that we have a deferral till we got further facts before us.
It seems another instalment in the battle of the bill can be expected.
At training last night, the Wildfires were doing everything to forget last weekend's big loss to Eastwood. 86-27 may seem a disgrace, but the club is determined to bounce back.
Well, I'd say the boys will be looking forward to improve on their last week's outing. I'm sure that they will do that, mate, after the scoreline from last week.
The Wildfires meet Parramatta tomorrow. It's the two Blues' first trip to Newcastle.
I think last week they had a fairly good hit out against Warringah, who up till that stage were competition leaders, so it's not going to be an easy game by any means.
The two sides are locked on 6 points on the competition ladder and must win to keep any faint hope of a finals berth alive. In Newcastle Rugby League, Souths will be without the services of Dominic Natavai for 2 weeks after the winger was found guilty of a careless high tackle in last week's game against Central. The Lions haven't ruled out appealing the decision. On the paddock this weekend, Curry Workers tackle Cessnock, Maitland up against the Bay. On Sunday, Lakes meet Toronto, West play Souths, while the cellar-dwelling Butcher Boys are at home to Waratah Mayfield. And in soccer, the Adamstown Rosebuds play the Rockdale City Suns at Adamstown Oval this Sunday. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.